Michael Patrick Shields is on the air.
Good morning, world.
Good morning, Michigan. A very pleasant hump day Wednesday to you. Is he or is he ain't David Brandon's baby? That's the question right now. Rich Rodriguez, conflicting reports about the future of the head coach at the University of Michigan. Some news outlets are reporting that he's been fired, but the university's athletic department says nothing's been made official at this stage. Athletic Director Dave Brandon met with Rich Rodriguez Tuesday afternoon for 3 hours, we understand, issued no statement. They are going to meet again today, and Rich Rodriguez and his Wolverines have won just 15 games over the last 3 seasons. That's not good enough at the University of Michigan, but a lot of people thought that would be that, and that his job would be history when they met yesterday. But apparently that step has not been taken, or if it has, it's not yet being revealed by the university. There was big speculation that Jim Harbaugh would come and take the Wolverines job, and suddenly that started to deflate yesterday. I have some inside gossip on where Harbaugh goes next from some people who know him well, and they say that he really likes Stanford a lot, and that Stanford has been very generous to him. They did some big things like a house, some investments, and that the $20 million offer from Stanford might be good enough for Jim Harbaugh. There are other people who say he likes the idea of coaching in the NFL and that the San Francisco 49ers have been after him since October, offering $30 million for 5 years. Now, there is some talk, too, that the University of Michigan needed to get their offer to $30 million, but the University of Michigan choked. They didn't like the price, and so the regents decided that's too much money, and that reportedly went down a few days ago. And there's, of course, the DeBartolo family with the 49ers who have lots and lots of money, and if they really want them, they can throw the money at them. Then we saw John Elway offering perhaps the job of the coach of the Denver Broncos. He was on the sideline for the Stanford game. Obviously, he was there because he's a Stanford alum, but speculation was that Harbaugh was really considering the NFL and that Miami, Denver, and the San Francisco 49ers, possibly the Carolina Panthers, were all interested. Right now, though, the Harbaugh is a rattler. He's the kind of guy who shakes things up, and every one of those teams I mentioned desperately needs that. Don't forget, too, one of my insiders said that the University of Michigan had the chance to hire Jim Harbaugh as its quarterback's coach, and they rejected him, and maybe he didn't like that so much. It was back in 2003. So there are all kinds of information swirling around right now. The Oakland Raiders, too, some people thought that perhaps Jim Harbaugh would be interested in the Raiders. Word is he does not like Al Davis, and he got a taste of him when he coached there as a pro. And so there's your update right now from the inside and the out on what's going on with the Wolverines and Rich Rodriguez. Gary Austin, if that's not story number one today, I don't know what is, but it could be the auto industry.
Boy, it could be. I tell you what, everybody is posting some pretty good numbers, the big three. What a great year in 2010. And we've really got to start with General Motors. I mean, that company was down and out, as we know, coming out of that bankruptcy business. And boy, all told, a very, very good year last year for all of the big three. In fact, GM sales rose a sizable 21% compared to 2009. Ford, sales up for Ford, 19%. Chrysler, up 17%. Pretty darn good.
Mm-hmm. Not bad at all. And also, though, we're hearing, too, some other good economic news, and that is that the unemployment rate is falling in certain parts of our state. True?
Yeah, but it's deceptive, though. It's because more and more folks in our state simply are giving up looking, and that's a big reason why these numbers are going down, MPS. Hate to rain on that parade, but it's true. We've got to be honest here. The situation, I mean, in pure numbers, face value, yeah, it looks great. But look at the details. Not so hot. A lot of folks in this state are downright discouraged. They can't find a job, and they've simply given up looking. And as we know, the state no longer counts those who've given up looking for work. And there are a lot of people, as we know, who are hoping they could put all of that behind them with that winning lottery ticket. However, it was not to be in Michigan, sadly.
Yeah, the money was won last night at 11 o'clock by two different tickets, and those tickets were sold in Idaho and in Washington State.
Yeah. Darn those out-of-state lottery winners.
Where we do have some clout is the 112th Congress being sworn in today, and we'll talk with Congressman Mike Rogers a little bit later and Senator Debbie Stabenow. Michigan's lawmakers carry a lot of clout this year. Four Michiganians start new in the House today. We've got freshman Bill Huizenga, Justin Amash, Dan Benishik, and Hanson Clark, and then Tim Walberg returns to Congress. But how about this for clout? Senator Carl Levin, the Democrat, is chairing the Senate Armed Services Committee.
Right.
Senator Debbie Stabenow, who we'll talk to later this morning as well, the Democrat, is going to chair the Senate Agriculture Committee. Representative Dave Camp, the Republican from Midland, chairing the House Ways and Means Committee. Congressman Fred Upton from St. Joseph, the Republican, chairing the House Energy and Commerce Committee. Congressman Rogers, who I mentioned we'll speak to, is chairing the Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence. And Congresswoman Candace Miller, the Republican from Harrison Township, is going to chair the Border, Maritime, and Global Counterterrorism Committee. And so Michigan is very well represented in terms of leadership in Washington. Isn't that interesting?
True. Yeah, it is. It is. I think we have to kind of disseminate that. And what does it mean? Obviously, these folks can't go in and play favorites when it comes to making decisions on their assorted committees, obviously. But the bottom line is this. It doesn't hurt having people from Michigan in powerful positions like that. And I think the big picture bodes well for this state. And we see that sort of thing. And it also shows, too, these are very successful people. Republicans and Democrats, they won their elections here locally. They moved on. Many at one point used to be, state lawmakers at one point. And they used to work in sorted local commissions in this state. And here they are. They've climbed the ladder and done quite well. And I think, congratulations are in order for these people because they worked very hard to get where they are.
Somebody going the other way on the ladder, the outgoing House Speaker Nancy Pelosi is vowing to aggressively oppose the Republican efforts to repeal the health care reform bill. She is going to become the House Minority Leader when the Republicans take control today. And do you know how she spent the last few days in office as Speaker of the House? Her final days were spent at the exotic Four Seasons Resort Hualalai in Kona on the island of Hawaii. And I was there just a few weeks ago, and let me tell you, it is exquisite, Hualalai. And she was escorted through the trip by a mini security motorcade that included Secret Service and Hawaii County police officers. She went to church in Kona. There were 2 police SUVs on guard during the hotel. And are you ready for this? She traveled to Hawaii by private plane. And the suite that she stayed in reportedly rents for $10,000 a night.
$10,000 a night?
Yes.
I can't imagine.
Police, the taxpayers' cost to guard her. Last year, Hawaii County taxpayers paid more than $21,000 in order to guard her while she was in Hawaii, in Kona, at the Hualalai Resort. Now, President Obama was in the same state, Hawaii, but over on the island of Oahu. And his trip, very expensive. You ready for this? Round-trip flight to Hawaii on Air Force One.
Yes.
$1 million.
$1 million.
Mrs. Obama's early flight to Hawaii, $63,000. Housing in beachfront homes for the Secret Service and the SEALs is $1,200 a day at a total cost of $16,800. The White House staff spent $134,000 at the other hotel. Police overtime for the locals was $250,000, and there was a $10,000 ambulance available at all times. Also, there was a cargo plane that transported the presidential limos, the helicopters, and support equipment. That was a total of $140,000 per round trip. And he had a helicopter. He spent a lot of money, a lot of our money, to take his vacation, didn't he?
Well, let's look at the upside. Think of all the people that it took that were provided jobs, right?
Okay.
Looking at the upside. Hey, we do have...
Nancy Pelosi, though, by the way, is coming to the North American International Auto Show next week to tout recovery of the auto industry. She was invited by John Dingell and Senator Stabenow, and she's going to be there Monday for, the show doesn't go public till the weekend, but she will be there Monday. And she says, Detroit is at the center of our efforts to create the jobs of the future and grow a clean, green economy and strengthen our economy. And she'll be there to tout the news that you just told us, that auto sales in the United States rose last year for the first time since the recession. They're smaller than they were before, but new car and truck sales came in at 11.6 million. That's up 11% overall from last year. Toyota, the only company that sold fewer cars and trucks than in 2009. And people are worried now that the rising gas prices could put a screeching halt to the auto sales, and we'll have to see about that, because there is some talk that high oil prices are threatening to derail not only the auto business, but the fragile economic recovery among developed nations this year. The Dow yesterday was up 20, the S&P fell 2, and the NASDAQ lost 10 points. Gary?
Got something real quick here, and I think this is something we should talk about even after the break, and I think moms and dads will find this curious. Mouse mail, it's something new.
What's that?
And this is the first time something is being developed this detailed that protects kids from cyberbullying, sexting, and other dangers of the digital age. Mouse mail scans a child's incoming and outgoing emails and text messages for inappropriate words or unknown contacts.
And if there's anything from Brett Favre, it deletes it.
Okay.
18 after the hour. Michael Patrick Shields back in a flash. Just a couple of other news items before we talk to Daniel Stone from Newsweek magazine. He's got some rather shocking news for you. Stand by for that. Digital versions of the top 6 books outsold the print versions last week, according to USA Today's best-selling books. That's a big statement, isn't it, about how people are reading these days? And meanwhile, the financial difficulties of Borders, headquartered here in Michigan, has prompted the scheduling of a meeting between company officials and publishers. Borders has told the major publishers it's going to delay payments owed to them. 19,000 people employed by Borders, which is based here in Ann Arbor, Michigan. So the literary world is rocked in more than one way this morning. Meanwhile, a 5-year-old boy is dead after falling through the ice and drowning in Cass County. Wayne Township police say Gabriel Mahler wandered away from a neighbor's house in the direction of Big Twin Lake. First responders found the child unresponsive in the water, were unable to revive him at Borges Lee Memorial Hospital. We're very sad about that, and we can't say enough that if you're going on the ice, certainly if you have children that are near the ice, to be careful, because every year we hear these stories of people falling through the ice. A Lowell man is going to spend the next 4 months in jail for molesting a girl at a home daycare. 4 months in jail, that's it. Kent County judge also ordered Wayne Chamberlain yesterday to avoid school safety zones and to register as a sex offender. He apparently touched the child inappropriate last year at the daycare he and his wife run, and their license obviously has been suspended. Boy, that's a nightmare for parents who hope that their children are safe when they drop them off at daycare. The People's Choice Awards are tonight, and Alec Baldwin is saying that he's happy with his day job right now, but he is interested, perhaps, in politics down the road. Why not? It worked for Ronald Reagan, and it worked for Arnold Schwarzenegger. Why not Alec Baldwin? He's kind of hot-tempered, though, doesn't he? We never let the birthday of a beautiful woman pass without taking note. Diane Keaton is 65 today. She won the Oscar for her role in Annie Hall. And Pamela Sue Martin is 58. You would remember her as a very young woman on the TV shows Dynasty and the Hardy Boys Nancy Drew Mysteries. She was also in the Poseidon Adventure. Happy birthday, darlings, to all of you. Daniel Stone is with us now from Newsweek magazine. What do you think about Alec Baldwin in politics? You like that idea?
I think it's a great idea. I think we could use someone to spice things up like only he could.
He's got drama and humor going at the same time, and in Washington you probably need both, don't you?
Exactly. We're missing some of the humor lately, but no, he would sure bring it.
Now, a not-so-humorous topic is that the testing of our nation's nuclear plants, in terms of defending them, has revealed some pretty shocking information, and you write about it in Newsweek magazine.
Right. This week we took a look at some of the nuclear power plants around the country and some of the security tests that are taken periodically on each of these plants, and we found out that about 8% over the past 5 years have failed those inspection tests from time to time. And, you know, had those been actual terrorists breaking into some of those plants, could have revealed or could have led to some major catastrophic fallout for some regions around the country.
So how do they go about testing the security? Do they send fake terrorists to give it a shot?
It's really interesting. That's exactly what they do. They have these teams of fake terrorists of about half a dozen, you know, government operatives. Some of these are military members who are on leave, and they essentially try to stage a break-in. Now, it's all planned in advance. No one's caught by surprise, so no one's, shot accidentally or hurt in any way, but they try to find the vulnerabilities in the plant security. And so they break in and they try to get to the reactor core, they try to get to the control room, and cause as much havoc as they can. And like I said, about 8% of the time, they've been able to get chillingly far and pose a major security threat that could lead to, like I said, something majorly catastrophic.
What could they do if they got into a nuclear facility, terrorists?
Well, that's one of the interesting points. The Nuclear Regulatory Commission, which oversees these tests and oversees all security, is very vague about how these tests go, what the vulnerabilities are, and their rationale is they don't want to give anyone, including reporters like me, any information about what the terrorists were able to do or where they were able to do it that could give some sort of roadmap to real terrorists who could pick a target based on that information. So they won't say, but that's one of the problems about the whole industry is the whole thing is run so secretively in the shadows, and there's so little information about the security of our nuclear power plants that we found it to be somewhat similar in many ways to the oil industry, that an industry out of public view could get very sloppy in some ways.
On your Newsweek blog, The Gaggle, you talk about the biggest political lies and half-truths of the year. I don't know, maybe that sort of goes without saying, but what were some of the biggest whoppers we were fed by the government?
Well, the big one by far last year was the so-called government takeover of healthcare. This was a term used most frequently by members of the Republican Party in the House, but also some Democrats bought into this too, and it was the leading opposition cry to the healthcare package last year, that the government was going to take over. The problem is that implies a system, something like Canada or the UK, where the government actually controls the healthcare system, which is pretty far short of what Democrats got last year when they got just a system where the government helped some people gain access. The government does not administer healthcare. So it created this sort of system of fear that the Republicans really tried to tap into. Of course, we all know they weren't able to, but that was one of the big lies of last year.
Yeah, now Fred Upton, the congressman from Southwest Michigan, went on national news this weekend and said that they're going to get a vote in the House to repeal at least parts of the health care plan. Nancy Pelosi, who gives up her position today as Speaker of the House, said that the Democrats will fight that tooth and nail. And the Senate, as I'm told, has already sent a letter saying if this comes to the Senate, it won't make it past here. So is what we're seeing just a bit of political theater?
Yes, it's theater, but it's not without meaning. This is symbolism. Remember, the Republicans ran their campaign in 2010 last year on repealing health care, and they're going to do it. Whether or not it passes, they're going to make good on that promise. So we're expecting that vote to happen next Wednesday, the 12th. And John Boehner, who gets sworn in as Speaker of the House today, said he's going to call that vote. And they've already attached a somewhat colorful name to that vote. They're calling it Repeal the Job-Killing Health Care Act of 2011. So a bit of theatrics. And yes, it's mainly politics. We can expect a lot of the mud to fly on both sides about exactly what the motivations are behind this.
Well, we will be talking later in this program with Republican Congressman Mike Rogers and Democratic Senator Debbie Stabenow, and we appreciate the background that we always get from you in Newsweek magazine and on The Gaggle, too, and thanks for being with us so early.
Absolutely. Thanks, Mike Patrick.
You bet. Daniel Stone from Newsweek magazine this morning. I hope, boy, that's a little scary. 8 out of 100 attempts to get into nuclear facilities by fake terrorists were successful. In sports this morning, you want to know that Rich Rodriguez, you thought he was fired. Maybe he's not. Some media outlets jumped the gun yesterday afternoon. Even the national outlets who were taking their cues from Detroit reporters reported that Rich Rodriguez was fired, but the athletic department says it's not true. It was media speculation, and David Brandon would be the definitive voice in the matter. That's what they said. We have some sneaky audio here from the meeting that went on yesterday between David Brandon and Rich Rodriguez. This was recorded in the office in Ann Arbor at Michigan.
Hello. Thanks for coming over, Coach Rodriguez. Come on in and sit down.
Awesome. I have been looking forward to talking to you, Dave.
Now that the football season is over, I think it might be the appropriate time to complete the evaluation of the football program at the University of Michigan.
That sounds great. Let's spot the ball and go.
The first thing I want to make clear with you, Coach Rodriguez, is as the head coach, I consider you commander-in-chief of the program. The success or failure of the team rests on your shoulders.
I'm all in on that.
During this evaluation, I employed a very methodical process. The only way to get a true picture is to look at all aspects of the program. It is not fair to the fans and alumni to only consider a single aspect or a single performance of the team.
I'm not sure I can agree with this approach. When I was hired for this job, I was told that I needed to bring my offensive genius to the program.
Well, we did not hire you as offensive coordinator, we hired you as head coach. As I was saying, we are going to look at all aspects of the program. We can start with the offense if you like.
That sounds good. Let's start with the offense. You know our quarterback Denard Robinson won the Big Ten Offensive Player of the Year, right?
Yes, I know Denard is a very special player. I would agree that our offense has made significant improvements over your previous 2 seasons here in Ann Arbor.
Yeah, baby. Bring it on. Tell me some more.
It seemed to me that the offense looked great against poor teams like Notre Dame, Bowling Green, and Indiana. When your offense played against teams with actual football players, like Wisconsin, Ohio State, and Mississippi State, it looked very average.
We are still very young.
I agree. Yes, we are very young, but our evaluation is for this season, not the potential for success in future seasons. You have been here for 3 years, which should be plenty of time to get and develop football players that can play. Overall, I would grade your offensive performance this season as a B-.
B-? I guess that is better than take 4 C did this semester.
Now let's move on to our special teams.
Do we really have to look at the special teams? The past is the past.
Quite honestly, I am not quite sure what to say. Our special teams do not exist. Your kicking game was the absolute worst in the country this season. Our kickers only made 4 field goals all season, and your choice to go for a 35-yard field goal during the Gator Bowl may have been the worst decision I have ever seen.
Well, you are entitled to your opinion.
Yes, I am. As the athletic director, my opinion is really the only one that counts. I think you need to be reminded that they are called special teams, not special needs teams. My grade is F as in failure.
I don't know what to say. Do you like Josh Groban music?
You bring me up. We'll see what happens. More on the situation in Ann Arbor with the University of Michigan football coach Rich Rodriguez, and if they fire him, who would come next? Because it looks an awful lot like Jim Harbaugh is not coming back to the University of Michigan, where he was a successful quarterback and where he essentially grew up tugging at the trousers of Bo Schembechler as a little kid on the practice field there. It's 35 minutes after the hour. The Answer Man coming next, and a full sports report in 20 minutes. Stay tuned. 20 minutes before the hour, we're heard all across the state of Michigan on radio stations in Benton Harbor, Mount Pleasant, Petoskey, Traverse City, Hastings, Lansing, Saginaw, Manistee, Grand Rapids, Kalamazoo, Ludington, and Muskegon, and so you're listening to us all over pure Michigan. This music indicates that it's time for the Answer Man, and so if you're watching on Fox 47 television in the Lansing area, I put the hat on right now that brings me the wisdom to fend off the questions of Gary Austin. And you can always find us on Facebook.com too, and at www.michigantalknetwork.com, where all of the segments of the program are podcasted so you can listen to them again. And there's a connection there to YouTube as well if you want to see what this looks like, or any of our guests, or this Answer Man hat. Or just pop down here. We have the Gillespie Group storefront studio right on the Avenue of Michigan. It's made for visitors with a coffee house and a lobby area with memorabilia. And right outside the front steps there, we're on Michigan Avenue, just a couple blocks from the Capitol. So you can get to us any way you like, and on the phone at 888-900-9966. Now, never been wrong. Don't try this at home. This is an exhibition, not a competition. So please, no wagering, as Gary Austin attempts to stump the Answer Man. He's never done it before, and he's ready now. What is your question?
I always do my best. Here's number 1. How many did not, Answer Man, win the Mega Millions jackpot last night. How many did not win?
Everybody but the two who did.
You're absolutely
And by
positively
the way,
right.
it's a lot of people because the jackpot went all the way up to $350 million before the drawing took place last night at 11 o'clock.
Yeah, that's a lot of money.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of our hard-earned money from Michigan.
They have to
making a couple
split
of
it,
out-of-staters rich. That's not fair.
Yeah, where were they from? Idaho and somewhere else?
Washington State,
Yeah,
yeah.
and so they're going to have to split it, though. You think they're disappointed?
You have to split it. That's got to be disappointing.
So
you mean I didn't win the
350,
whole thing?
Yeah, that's what, 175, right?
Yeah.
And take 75 away for taxes, and then chop that in half if you want to take the money all up front.
Yes.
50 million's all you get.
Yeah.
What are you going to do with 50 million? It's
I
not
don't
going to change your life.
Yeah, I don't know. But anyway, so it goes. So we start from scratch all over again.
50 million's in the blowable category, don't you think? What I mean by that is, if you're smart, you can never work again, and your kids maybe would never work again. But it's also a $50 million net chunk.
Yeah.
Is easy to blow if
Oh.
you're not careful.
Absolutely. You know, my dad always said, it's great. I mean, I love this saying, and remember it. It's not how much money you make or have. It's how you spend what you do make or have.
So if you buy $1 million house, let's say, you're down
Yeah.
to 49 million.
That's right. That's right.
And, then you're going to get a couple cars probably. Maybe you're going to take some private flights. I mean, it can go fast.
Yep. If you're not careful, that's exactly what can happen. You're
Plus,
absolutely
everybody
right.
in your family is going to surface with their hand out.
Oh, you bet.
And it's nice to be generous. And maybe you're going to give some of that to charity.
Yeah.
So be careful.
You
There are
will
lots of
suddenly-
stories of people that lose all that money.
You'll suddenly discover you had friends you never thought you had before.
Yeah.
It's an odd thing. Money will do that occasionally.
It's not the money, it's the amount.
Yes. All right, here we go. Facebook users uploaded a record-breaking number of photos over the New Year's holiday weekend. This is just staggering. How many, Answer Man, were uploaded? Give or take a million.
How many photos?
Give or take a million.
In one day, you mean? Or
Yeah, in one day.
Well, I saw a person the other day on Facebook that had 2,000 photos of themselves
What?
on their Facebook page.
2,000 photos of
Yeah.
themselves on their own Facebook.
Isn't that wild?
Is that you?
No. Can you imagine? Now that's not only do 2,000 photos of this person exist, but they posted all 2,000 of them on Facebook.
The reason why I ask is I know you've been all over the place and you take pictures of everything, so I would think you would qualify for someone who would really load them up. But I mean,
Nah.
that's a lot.
Not that much. I do have a Facebook page. It's my name, Michael Patrick Shields, or MPS in the, what is it, MPS in the morning, I guess. But we also have a Facebook page for the show, too, where we bring people up to date on what's going
Yeah.
on. And all
Well,
that
anyway,
stuff.
750
limited
million.
photographs.
750 million in all for that weekend.
Yeah,
All
that's
right,
what I figured.
President Obama, he's signed a comprehensive food safety bill. This is the first big overhaul of its kind in how many years?
And in a number of years.
Yes, 70 years. You notice the theme of our Answer Man show? is
Numbers.
Numbers
And
today.
numbers
And
are not my thing.
Well, here's another one here, but you're still doing well. Taxpayers will get an extra, how many days this year to get our tax returns filed?
Extra days.
Yes. This is kind of unusual here. and I'll
Extra?
explain
What do we
why.
get extra days for? Two extra days?
Actually, three. 3 extra days, April 15th to the 18th. The IRS says the reason for this, we have Emancipation Day, and that's observed in Washington, D.C., and the observance falls on a Friday, April 15th, and also there's some holidays mixed in, too. And also, apparently, I think the IRS, according to this, too, some tax law changes, and that's requiring a little extra time. But anyway, you add
So,
all that in, we get a few
It's
extra
not
days.
like they want to give it to us.
But that's the way it all works out.
And if you go from midnight on the 15th, yeah, it's about that.
But you know what? So many will still wait. The procrastinators, and you know who you are, you'll wait till the last minute anyway, no matter how much extra time.
Or file for an extension.
That's right. It always seems to work out that way. Okay, last one here, Answer Man.
Let her rip.
The surge in popularity of iPads, Kindles, Nooks, and other digi-ready devices over the holidays is showing up in the sale of what kind of books?
Digital.
E-books. You're absolutely right. Quickly,
the
for those
top-
who don't know, what's an e-book?
Well, the top 6 sellers sold more on e-digital books than they did in printed books.
Like, where do you get an e-book?
You download it and you read it on your Kindle or your handheld device, whatever you want to do.
I see.
Yeah, it's weird. I wouldn't want to take it into the bathtub or maybe to the beach. 14 before the hour, the Answer Man window now officially closed. So Rich Rodriguez still employed this morning, according to the University of Michigan, despite the fact that media outlets yesterday said he was fired. He went into a meeting with David Brandon at 2 o'clock, and at 2:30 they started reporting from Detroit that he'd been fired, but the meeting went on for 3 hours. So how did they know that? Did they know that? And now David Brandon and the University of Michigan says nothing happened yesterday, and you won't hear anything until you hear it definitively from David Brandon one way or another. So is Rodriguez in? Is he out? Stay tuned, because they're going to meet again today. And it looks like Jim Harbaugh will not take the job at the University of Michigan. So if they fire Rodriguez, who are they going to get? Is it going to be Les Miles from LSU, who once coached at the University of Michigan? Is it going to be Brady Hoke, who at San Diego State was once a Michigan assistant, but really hasn't been terribly overwhelmingly impressive out west? Who's left to coach the Michigan Wolverines? You don't want another situation like they had before, where somebody left, like Lloyd Carr, and they couldn't find the person they wanted to bring in. The Red Wings were in Edmonton yesterday, and radio broadcaster Ken Kal was there.
Thanks, Michael Patrick. Todd Bertuzzi scored a pair of goals, leading the Red Wings to a 5-3 victory over the Oilers last night in Edmonton. Both teams traded goals in the first period. Henrik Zetterberg tallied for Detroit. Gilbert Brulé scored for the Oilers. Tom Bertuzzi and Chris Draper netted goals for Detroit in the second period as the Red Wings increased their lead to 3-1. The Oilers, though, came back. They tied the game in the third when Theo Peckham and Sam Gagner beat Chris Osgood. But late in the third, Bertuzzi and Darren Helm scored 44 seconds apart to give Detroit their 25th victory of the season. The Red Wings outshot the Oilers 37-25. Again, the final from Edmonton. The Red Wings 5 and the Oilers 3. That's the story from Rexall Place. Now back to you, Michael Patrick, in the studio.
Boy, the Red Wings are good. The Pistons are not so good. They finished a 3-game road trip with 3 losses. They lost yesterday to the Lakers, 108-83. That's a pretty good stomping there. They're going to come back to the Palace and host Philadelphia on Saturday night. But Detroit is now 11-24 on the season, in 4th place in the Central Division. The Baseball Hall of Fame class of 2011 is going to be announced today, and 4 former Tigers are on the ballot. Jack Morris, candidate for the 12th year. He's pitched in 14 of 18 Major League seasons with the Tigers. He played also for the Twins and the Blue Jays and the Indians. He led all of American League's pitchers in the 80s with 162 wins and was a member of 3 World Championship teams, in 84 with the Tigers and 91 and 92. Alan Trammell, also on the ballot. He played in the majors for 20 years, all of them with Detroit. 4 Golden Glove Awards, and World Series MVP back in 84. Bobby Higginson is on the list, too. He spent his 11-year career with the Tigers. And Juan Gonzalez, who played for Detroit in 2000. Both of those are on the ballot for the first time. And if you want to be elected to the Hall of Fame, you must be named on at least 75% of the ballots. We talked with Larry Sorensen, who pitched in the major leagues. He thought that Jack Morris definitely belonged in the Hall of Fame. So did Alan Trammell, and not so sure about Juan Gonzalez, and certainly not Bobby Higginson, is the way he laid it all out. Yesterday was the Sugar Bowl, and it was of intrigue because the Ohio State Buckeyes were playing. They've had 4 players who were basically suspended by the NCAA, but not till next season. Terrell Pryor, the quarterback, being one of them, and he was the starter yesterday for the Buckeyes. And wasn't it strange to watch the game and see those Buckeye players, like particularly the center and the quarterback, with tattoos all over their arms? And we know how they got them, by trading merchandise and autographs and so forth. So it was right on display there. And, the Solomon Thomas picked off a Ryan Mallett pass at the Buckeyes 17-yard line with just under a minute to play, and Ohio State holds off Arkansas 31-26 in the Sugar Bowl. The Buckeyes were up 31-13 and held on to beat an SEC team in a bowl for the first time ever. And Ryan Mallett, who used to be with the University of Michigan, left when Rich Rodriguez came to town, has a rocket for an arm, doesn't he? What a game, and it was really something. And a lot of fun there in New Orleans. Tom Cable, not so much fun. He won't be back as the head coach of the Oakland Raiders. They announced last night that they've declined Cable's contract options. He was 17-27 in 2+ seasons with Oakland, 8-8 this year. 6-0, though, in the AFC West, and some people thought he might have been able to stick it out. Not so for Tom Cable. Al Davis tells him, here are your walking papers. Marvin Lewis will be returning to the Cincinnati Bengals, though. Most of the people thought he would be out. They're coming off a 4-12 season, And Marvin Lewis is 60, 69-1 in 8 seasons. Only 2 playoff appearances. You would think he would have been sent walking, but they sorted it out. And some people are saying the fact that there could be a lockout in the NFL next year is why people are hanging on to their coaches, because it would be awkward to have a new coach in with nobody to coach. A 22-year-old man is in hot water for allegedly driving a stolen golf cart while drunk in Arlington, Virginia. Police pulled over Everth's Morin Rise in the early morning of December 30th. The cart was taken from a nearby mall, and he's been charged with driving under the influence, grand larceny, and driving on a suspended license. So those of us who like to have a little suds when we're playing golf in the golf cart, be careful. Anytime you're driving a motorized vehicle, you're under the possibility, especially at Put-in-Bay, where you drive golf carts all the time. They get people pulled over frequently in situations like that, because when you're in a golf cart, you forget that that's actually a motorized vehicle. 3 minutes before the hour, Michael Patrick Shields. Next hour, more of the inside audio of the meeting yesterday with David Brandon and Rich Rodriguez. Stay tuned for that. And later, Senator Stabenow and Congressman Rogers. Michael Patrick Shields, Hump Day Wednesday. It is a Wildcat Wednesday brought to you by Northern Michigan University, and we are welcoming here in our Gillespie Group storefront studio Ann Stark, the marketing director for Northern Michigan University, and Gary Stark, her husband, associate professor of management at Northern Michigan University. Good morning and welcome.
Thank you. Wonderful to be here.
You might have heard me talking a few minutes ago with Gary Austin about the collegiate experience, and Gary was sort of bemoaning, just like Gary Moeller did a number of years ago, the fact that there's such an intense pressure to win. And that, in some cases, the students lose one game and they think their season is over. What's your take on that from a Northern Michigan University perspective? Is there too much pressure on athletes, college athletes, to win?
Well, Northern's football program is a Division II sport, and I think at that level, it's more about the players and their excellence on the field, and they can participate, and then it's a collegial atmosphere. So I think there is more pressure at the Division I level for our hockey team to win. So we're a unique situation where we have both a Division I sport with hockey and Division II with everything else. So you can see the difference between the pressure for the hockey players. We love our team enough that we go when they lose and when they win. So.
Yeah. At the same time, winning and losing, not only in sports, but in life, is part of the experience, I think, for everybody. And from an academic standpoint, too. I mean, that not all students are going to get A's across the board. And so they're going to learn these little lessons along the way, right?
Yes.
I mean, from a business standpoint, that's important to learn, isn't it?
Right. Yeah, I think part of the teaching experience is just always encouraging the students to, that they can learn from those mistakes. I used to use a line from the Magic School Bus. I don't know if you remember that old TV show, and Ms. Frizzle about make mistakes, get messy, and learn from it. I forgot the exact line, but
yeah. I heard a young man who just finished college. I asked him the other day, was it tough to get into school? He said it wasn't tough to get into school. It was tough to stay in school. For some people, young students, the first semester can be a culture shock and an academic shock too, right?
Yeah, it's a huge. We have a freshman son whose his first semester in college was this fall, and he actually came out fairly well. Very proud of our son, Calvin. But yeah, it's a big adjustment because you're learning all those life lessons about a new roommate and moving and having to balance your checkbook and putting gas in your own car, as well as learning how to go to class, take notes, manage your time, probably start a new job. So young people are dealing with a lot of changes. One of the great things I like about Northern is we have a really strong support system from lots of different angles to help kids with those transitions. I think if parents are looking for schools for their kids, they should be looking at, are there a first-year program where there's a block of courses all together? So students have that group of students that they're taking 4 or 5 classes together, so they have instant study group. And then in the dorm, in the residence halls, we have what we call houses. They're living learning groups of about 50 students. And so that's the group you gel with at home. And they do lots of activities together. They're very competitive. That's the groups that do homecoming contests together. It's the house that they do it with.
It is an adjustment for the parents, too, isn't it?
Huge.
Especially if it's your first child going to college. And it's a tough decision. A very tough decision, it would seem to me. I also have heard a college placement expert tell me that, when you're figuring out what, grade of school you're going to, what size university and that sort of thing, that it would be smart to, instead of eking into a school, go in at the top level of the bracket of the school that you're going to, because you'll get honors course and lots of support and that kind of thing. What do you think of that theory? Because there are some people who ache to get into, let's say, the University of Michigan, and they barely make it in, and then they struggle.
Yeah. Well, it's good to have a place where you feel at home, and I think that's more important than what the perception of the prestige of a school or the exclusivity of a school. To this day, our university president asked a challenge, and nobody has been able to prove that you get more income or a higher income level or a better career, starting your career at an elite school as opposed to a regional state public university. And education is an education, at least for undergraduate. Now, you might want to look for a more prestigious school for a graduate master's or PhD program, but I think for a lot of undergraduate students, we just need them to be in school and be successful and be happy where they are. So we want them to find a university that supports their needs, that has a range of majors that they're interested in, so they can test the waters on a couple different things, and there's enough support from the faculty and the staff and their fellow students to get them through, so they don't feel like they're struggling, or when they are struggling, that they feel like they can ask for help.
What percent? Oh, go ahead.
I think
Sorry.
one of the things students appreciate too is, I have all sorts of respect for Michigan State, the big research schools like that, and that's great. But and we do research at Northern Michigan, but the emphasis is more on teaching and not quite the research pressures. So you'll find a good interaction. You won't be taught by graduate students all the way until your senior year. You'll have real professors with real doctorates right away.
How many students are at Northern?
9,400.
9,400. And do most of them come from the state of Michigan?
Most of them come from the state of Michigan. Just slightly less than half come from the Upper Peninsula and then downstate Michigan, and we have some from Wisconsin, Illinois, Minnesota.
Is it expensive?
It's the second most expensive, or second least expensive school in the state of Michigan. It's
It is.
very affordable. And one of the great things about Northern is we roll a laptop into tuition and fees, and we update that laptop every 2 years. So that's one less thing for parents to have to worry about. Buying a computer for my kid to go to college. It's right there at Northern.
80% of the students get some sort of financial aid. So
80%?
80%.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
We work hard to get people in, to get people through.
One of the things that, as an institution, we've really worked hard at is access, because Upper Peninsula, the economy there hasn't always been the strongest, and so a lot of our families have struggled financially to send their kids to school. So one of the big commitments for the university is to keep the tuition as low as we can while maintaining high-quality academic programs, because we know it's a difficult thing to cough up money to send your kid to school. It's also important to give them that good start. So we understand the needs of those families, that it's a big investment, and we want to make sure that everybody is getting as much out of that investment as they can.
Does a school like Northern Michigan, which is in what some people would consider to be a remote location,
It is remote. We love it there, though.
Absolutely love it.
does that make it easier for students to focus?
Probably a balance.
Yeah.
I mean, there's when we ask students why did they pick Northern, it's Northern had the major they're interested in, or because of the location, and it's beautiful there, and there's tons of things to do year round, whether it's kayaking and swimming and in the summer, or skiing and cross country skiing and snowshoeing in the winter. There are a lot of activities to do outside, so I think our students do have to balance playing outside, playing with and enjoying all the student life activities on campus and studying. Because we're in kind of a remote location, we tend to make our own fun.
So it's an active sort of place.
I think our students don't realize how busy they are.
The quality of the activities are such that it'll calm you. I mean, you're out in nature. You're 5 minutes from a hiking trail. Maybe not even that much. 5 minutes from the ski hill, 2 minutes from the lake. So I think it's the quality of activities that help you focus, actually.
What's the collegiate visit like to come and have a look-see at Northern Michigan?
Well, it is a hike, so we try to make it really valuable for students, families who have to come from Lower Peninsula and drive all the way. You do drive and drive and drive. So we try to make it as valuable as possible. There's a guided campus tour, And we'd like to have you meet with a faculty member in the department that you're interested in a major. So you can actually visit one-on-one. And my husband, Gary, does that.
And that's a little bit unusual, too. Apparently,
Yeah.
A lot of times when you go to a campus, you don't actually get to meet a faculty member.
Sure.
And I do that all the time, and I enjoy it. It's nice to meet people.
What is the question they ask the most?
It's funny. It's mostly the parents who are asking the questions.
Yeah.
The students, they want to know what kind of jobs you're going to get, what kind of income you'll get. They want to look at the curriculum, make sure it's okay. So.
There are flights too. How far are you from Marquette?
It's from Marquette, from Detroit, you mean?
When you landed Marquette, how far is the school?
Oh, probably about a 20-minute drive. From
Okay.
the airport.
If
And
that.
there's about 6 or 7 flights in and out a day. I'm always amazed at the number of flights in and out of there.
So it's
I usually
accessible
get
by
it
air,
in and
too.
out.
Yeah.
If somebody wants to have a look online or maybe arrange a visit, how do they do that?
www.nmu.edu.
nmu.edu.
I should mention, too, I think just get up there. Apparently the average student now takes 5 campus visits. It wasn't like that when I went to school. And so you would think that most schools, most universities would have about a 20%, Ann calls it a conversion rate, of people who visit and actually
Stay.
end up there. So you would expect about 20% rate if the average student goes to 5 schools. We have about a 50% conversion
No kidding.
rate. So go up and visit. There's a good chance you'll enroll. You'll
Once
love
they
it.
see it, they're in. Interesting. Northern Michigan University, it's www.nmu.edu. Have a look-see at 35 minutes after the hour. Thank you very much to Ann and Gary Stark. We'll talk again soon. So Ann and Gary Stark from Northern Michigan University are with us on a Wildcat Wednesday, brought to you by Northern Michigan University. And they were just getting up to go. And you have had a heck of a trail to get here to our studio.
Yes,
Yeah,
have.
we did. Yeah, we've kind of done a circle tour of Lake Michigan. We went to the Green Bay Packers game against Chicago. Which
What was that like? First of all, how far of a drive from Northern Michigan to Green Bay is
about
it?
3 hours.
3 hours. So you went to Lambeau Field for
Yeah,
that game.
First game at Lambeau Field, and we picked a good one.
That was a must-win for the Packers, or they weren't going to the
And
playoffs.
it didn't look like they were doing a whole lot for the first half, and we're like, and all the Chicago fans around us are trash talking, and finally the Packers got with it in the second half.
And the Bears fans got pretty quiet in the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
That last interception, that place just exploded. We were all jumping up.
The Bears were driving, looked like it was going to be, it was over, and picked it
I
off.
think they would have tied it, but is that right? Yeah,
Did
10-3.
if you live in Marquette, are you a Packer fan or a Lions fan?
That's a bit of a controversy.
It's a toss-up.
Yep.
Both people are both. Both of us tend to really be into college football more so than NFL. So we didn't really follow the NFL until we knew that we had Packers tickets. We bought them in a charity auction for the YMCA in Marquette.
Oh, I see.
And so then we started following and like, oh, this is going to be a really meaningful game. So
And it was. And my friend Noel and Trish Laporte went to Lambeau Field earlier this year, and they said it was an unbelievable experience. It's not like what you would expect going to an NFL game. True?
What I think it reminded me of is Gary got his doctorate at University of Nebraska.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, not that it's an NFL versus college, but it was that same in your guts, real, authentic fan feel.
Yeah, when you're at Memorial Stadium at Nebraska, you feel almost like you're sort of in the cradle of college football. I mean, there's other great college football programs. You get that feeling at Lambeau. I mean, there's no place like Lambeau Field, no franchise like the Packers. Sorry, Lions fans. I like the Lions too. They just haven't done that much lately.
It's not that big, the stadium, right?
It's loud, though.
72,000.
Is it? Oh, it is.
I don't know how big that is, but
That's pretty big.
standards. Okay.
But I think they must have expanded it or something like that.
Yes, they did.
It's in a little neighborhood,
Yeah.
essentially.
Yeah, there's a few bars and stuff around there, but there's this great big parking lot, and then houses across the street.
It's not even that big a parking lot. It's not quite like Wrigley Field. It's not dropped right in the middle of the neighborhood.
Yeah.
The neighborhood around there is not. Yeah, there's not a big parking lot. It's pretty much dropped in a neighborhood.
Well, they were having a blast. That was a late game, I think. Finished around 7 o'clock, something, or maybe 6 out
And
there.
we drove to Chicago that night.
You did.
The next day to go to a wedding, actually for a woman who was a former student of mine and a former employee of Vance.
Yeah.
She worked
Two
for the
NMU
marketing
alumni
department.
getting married,
How about that?
and so we went to their wedding. It was lovely.
What's it like for you two to be working at the same university? And how long have you been married?
We've been married 22 years in May.
Oh, really?
23 years.
23 years. Oh, see?
And your son, you said, is attending Northern as well?
Calvin is attending Northern. We have a daughter who's a senior in high school who will be going to Northern. She's already picked out her roommate, and they're getting their stuff together for their dorm room.
All in the family.
Yeah, and then the 11-year-old has gone to the youth things on campus. So, yeah, we're kind of bleeding green here.
And I was so thrilled when I got the position there. And then we felt so lucky when she also got a position there, too. We really lucked into a really good situation.
How long is the drive back for you today from Lansing?
Probably 6 or 7 hours, is that right? That's my guess.
Yeah.
I'm kind of afraid to look.
It's not so bad. And it's a beautiful drive.
Yeah, and you get to go over the Mackinac Bridge in the middle of January when the wind is blowing and the straits and the ice and everything else. How about
We've
that?
done the bridge walk for Labor Day.
Yeah, I was there this year, too.
Yeah.
That's
so
fun.
It's way more fun to walk, I think, than it is to drive in January.
It's a neat experience. Wildcat Wednesdays brought to you by Northern Michigan University, and now you have an interest in the Packers through the playoffs, huh?
Yes,
I think they have to go to Philadelphia and play Michael Vick this weekend.
And then I guess if they win, they play Chicago again. And apparently Chicago does not want to play the Packers.
No, I wouldn't think so. I wouldn't think so, even in Chicago.
Right.
Thank you very much again, and congratulations on that visit to the Packers game. It's something a lot of people have on their bucket list. You know, if they want to get to Wrigley Field and see a baseball game, or maybe Fenway Park, and certainly a Packers game would be the place to go. All the best to Ann Stark and Gary Stark from Northern Michigan University. It's 44 minutes after the hour. Bring you up to date on some of the news items we've been following this morning. Conflicting reports about Rich Rodriguez. He is the coach. He's not the coach. He may be the coach. He may not be the coach. There's another meeting today. Nothing official yet from the University of Michigan. The Big Three had a great year in 2010. General Motors, Ford, and Chrysler all reported double-digit sales increases in the U.S. for the year. In fact, every automaker had an increase except Toyota. Their sales were flat compared to the previous year. And Ford sales, for instance, were up 19%. General Motors up 21%, and Chrysler up 17%, so we're happy about that. However, this is good news too, I guess. Seasonally unadjusted unemployment rates fell in 14 of Michigan's 17 major labor markets. The three areas that rose from October to November were Northwest Lower Michigan, Northeast Lower Michigan, and the Upper Peninsula. We'll keep you up to date. There were some people who were hoping not to have to work anymore by winning the Mega Millions last night. It was $355 million. 2 winning tickets were sold, unfortunately, in Idaho and Washington State. So that money is history. It is 14 now before the hour, too. Nancy Pelosi is coming to the auto show next week on Monday. Before that, she's been vowing not to let the Republicans repeal the health care law. We'll talk more about that with Senator Stabenow, too. It's Michael Patrick Shields all across Michigan. Michigan is on the way back, and maybe in Washington, part of the revival is the fact that our 112th Congress is going to include leadership by members of the Michigan delegation. Senator Carl Levin, the Democrat, will chair the Senate Armed Services Committee. Debbie Stabenow, the United States Senator, is going to chair the Senate Agriculture Committee. Congressman David Camp from Midland, the Republican there, will chair the House Ways and Means Committee. Very powerful. Congressman Fred Upton, the Republican from Southwest Michigan, will chair the House Energy and Commerce Committee. Also very powerful. Congressman Mike Rogers will chair the Intelligence Committee, and Congresswoman Candace Miller, also a Republican, will chair the Border, Maritime, and Global Counterterrorism Committee. And that all starts today when the 112th Congress is sworn in. And what that means, whether you're a Republican or a Democrat, is that Michigan has a strong showing, very strong showing in Washington on national affairs. Now, Nancy Pelosi, her final days of Speaker of the House, because that ends for her today, she is going to move down in class, I guess you could say, to another position. And Congresswoman Pelosi was in Hawaii for her last days at the Four Seasons Resort in Hualalai and Kona, on the Big Island, if you want to call it that. She was escorted through her trip by a mini security motorcade that included Secret Service and Hawaii County police officers. There were also 2 police SUVs guarding her. When she stayed at the Four Seasons in a suite that reportedly rents for $10,000 a night. $10,000 a night to chill out at Hualalai. Also, it cost Hawaii County taxpayers $21,000 to guard her while she was in town. She popped around town a little bit, went to church and things like that, and big ticket there for her. Now, not nearly as much as the president, who was on another island in Hawaii at the same time over on Oahu. His round-trip flight to Hawaii on Air Force One cost $1 million. $1 million. And Mrs. Obama went early. Her round-trip flight cost $63,000. Also, they had housing and beachfront homes for Secret Service. That cost $1,200 a day for a total cost of $16,800. And the White House staff staying at a nearby hotel, $400 a day for 24 staff. That's $134,400. Local police overtime amounted to $250,000, and there was a $10,000 charge for an ambulance on hand. Now, the cargo equipment that transported the presidential limos, helicopters, and sporting equipment between Andrews Air Force Base and Hawaii, that's $20 round trip for a total cost of $140,000. And so it was expensive for us, for the president to go on vacation. Maybe that doesn't bother you, but I just thought I would let you know. That's how it works. Now, when Nancy Pelosi comes Monday to the auto show, she will be there as a guest of Senator Debbie Stabenow, the Democrat from Lansing. Also, Congressman John Dingell, the Democrat from Dearborn, invited her. She'll be there Monday for the first of 2 press days, and the show opens to the public on January 15th. Nancy Pelosi says, quote, "Detroit is at the center of our efforts to create the jobs of the future, grow a clean, green economy, and strengthen our economy, too." So we'll be on the lookout Monday for Nancy Pelosi at the auto show. The Dow yesterday gained 20 points. The S&P fell 2. The NASDAQ lost 10 points. And high oil prices are threatening all this good news for the auto industry because, well, it's possible that by spring we could be paying close to $4 a gallon for gas, and that would mean, I think, that perhaps people would not be so eager to buy a new car. I don't know, but for one thing, they're saying that it really threatens the fragile economic recovery among developed nations, the price of oil. A 5-year-old boy, I'm sorry to tell you, is dead after falling through the ice in Cass Township. Wayne Township police say that Gabriel Mahler wandered away from a neighbor's house in the direction of Big Twin Lake, and they found him unresponsive in the water, tried to revive him. And in Lowell, a man will spend the next 4 months in jail for molesting a girl home daycare. The judge ordered him to avoid school safety zones and to register as a sex offender. He touched a child inappropriately at the daycare that he and his wife run. Their license has been suspended, but that's every parent's nightmare. You drop your child off at daycare, you think that they're safe and cared for, and this fella molested her. Now, why only 4 months in jail, I'm not sure. It seems like a pretty light sentence for an awful crime. The People's Choice Awards are tonight. Alec Baldwin is saying he may get into politics. After all, it worked for Arnold Schwarzenegger and Ronald Reagan. He likes his job right now on 30 Rock, but he said he'd like to run for office one of these days. Alec Baldwin, sort of a hothead. Certainly has the ability to be funny and dramatic, no question about that. We never let the birthday of a beautiful woman pass without taking note. Pamela Sue Martin, remember her on Dynasty and the Nancy Drew Mysteries and the Poseidon Adventure? She's 58. And Diane Keaton from the Woody Allen movies, lots of other pictures too, is 65. Television viewers, we're going to say goodbye for the morning, but remember, you can listen to us here in Lansing on 1240 a.m. and all across the state of Michigan. Stay right where you are. Congressman Rogers and Senator Stabenow next.
Bye, goodbye, good friends.